Japan's leading car makers face uncertainty as US President-elect Donald Trump signals major policy changes aimed at revitalizing American manufacturing.
Japanese automakers are optimistic about the trade discussions between Tokyo and Washington. The two sides reached a basic agreement in late August.
But I just signed the largest trade deal in history. I think maybe the largest deal in history with.
In the echo of campaign rallies and roaring applause, one voice cuts through the noise. Sharp, defiant, and familiar. Donald Trump, never one to hold back, has turned his focus once again toward America's automakers and the foreign companies he claims have taken advantage of the United States for decades. But behind the sound bites and the fury, something quieter, far more consequential, is already unfolding. Japan's most trusted car makers, the very names that built loyalty on American roads, are slowly, deliberately slipping away. There are no breaking headlines, no dramatic press conferences, just a steady retreat, a calculated reshaping of where billions of dollars and thousands of jobs will call home next. It's not a collapse, but a correction, born from years of uncertainty and the unpredictable waves of economic nationalism. For decades, Japanese automakers thrived in the US, building not just cars, but reputations. Made in Japan came to mean precision, pride, and the promise of endurance. American families trusted that badge, from Toyotas that outlasted generations to Hondas that defined reliability itself. But that trust is now caught between two worlds, one where tariffs rewrite the rules of trade overnight, and another where stability has quietly found a new address, north of the border. When Trump returned to the White House, his promise was simple: to bring manufacturing back, no matter the cost. Tariffs were his weapon of choice, a blunt instrument meant to punish offshoring and reward domestic loyalty. "We're going to make cars in America again," he thundered from podiums. But the numbers tell a different story. Instead of drawing factories home, those tariffs have pushed them away. Factories that once powered Indiana, Ohio, and Tennessee are slowing their lines. Executives who once praised America's vast consumer market now speak in measured tones about operational risk. The reason? Cost. The new tariffs, some as high as 25% on vehicles, 49% on imports, have turned the economics of American manufacturing upside down. Japanese automakers that once saw the US as their second home are suddenly calculating the price of staying loyal. The first cracks appeared early in 2025. Subaru's American president announced that its beloved Outback, a model deeply tied to North America, would no longer be built in Indiana for the Canadian market. The production line was moving home, back to Japan. On paper, it was a logistics move. In truth, it was a signal, a warning that the balance of power in North American manufacturing was shifting. Trump's tariffs were meant to make foreign automakers invest more in the United States. Instead, they've forced those companies to look elsewhere. And Canada, calm, predictable, and trade-friendly, is waiting with open doors. As the political storms swirl in Washington, a quieter transformation is already underway, one that could redefine where the future of the auto industry truly belongs. Subaru's decision was only the beginning, a quiet domino that set the stage for a much larger industrial migration. Within months, the whispers turned into patterns. Toyota, Honda, Mazda, and Mitsubishi all began redrawing their North American maps. One by one, factories that had once been cornerstones of US production started scaling back, redirecting resources to safer ground. The reason wasn't rebellion, it was survival. At the core of this movement lies a brutal calculation. Japan's automakers face tariff walls reaching up to 49% on vehicles built in Japan and sold in the US. For companies operating on razor-thin margins, those numbers aren't policy shifts. They're existential threats. When you stack steel, hot aluminum, and parts tariffs layer upon layer, the cost of simply staying in the American market doubles. It's a math problem that no amount of brand loyalty can solve. Meanwhile, north of the border, Canada is quietly turning these same trade barriers into open gates. Its free trade pact with Japan, part of the CPTPP framework, exempts Japanese exports from many of the duties now crippling US operations. For Tokyo's automakers, it's a dream equation: stability, predictability, and seamless access to both North American and Pacific markets. The result has been an unmistakable pivot. Ontario, long known for its skilled labor force and robust manufacturing backbone, has become the epicenter of this transformation. Across cities like Cambridge, Alliston, and Woodstock, Japanese automakers are expanding assembly lines, investing in EV research hubs, and anchoring new supply chains. What began as cautious relocation has grown into full-scale strategic realignment. Analysts estimate that Japanese carmakers have cut their US to Canada exports by more than half, from 26% to barely 10%, and redirected billions in fresh investment toward Canadian soil. The ripple effects go far beyond the factory floor, with tariffs inflating the cost of every imported component, from sensors to brake pads. US consumers are paying more for cars and maintenance alike. A simple oil filter, once $25, now sells for nearly double. Meanwhile, Canada's automotive exports are surging, buoyed by the same policies that once threatened to isolate it. For every tariff Washington raises, Ottawa finds a way to capitalize. What Trump calls economic defense has become Canada's invitation to growth. Japanese automakers now view Canada not as a secondary market, but as the new command center of their North American strategy. From research centers in Toronto to logistics hubs in Windsor, the country is positioning itself as the calm within the storm, a bridge between Asia's innovation and America's consumption. This isn't just trade, it's transformation. The world's most disciplined manufacturers have quietly voted with their investments, and their message is clear. In an age of volatility, the real power doesn't belong to those who shout the loudest. It belongs to those who can stay still while the world around them shakes. History, as it turns out, doesn't repeat itself by accident. It rhymes. 40 years ago, America tried something similar. In the early 1980s, President Ronald Reagan imposed export limits on Japanese cars to protect Detroit's automakers. The result wasn't protection, it was relocation. Honda and Toyota didn't retreat. They adapted. They built massive plants in Ontario, bypassing US restrictions while keeping their foothold in North America. It was called the industrial backdoor, a quiet workaround that revived Canada's manufacturing towns and solidified Japan's long-term presence on the continent. 4 decades later, that playbook is being rewritten, only this time on a grander scale. The global auto industry is no longer just about cars. It's about batteries, rare minerals, and clean energy ecosystems. Every tariff, every policy shift ripples through an entire web of technology and trade. By trying to wall off the market, Washington has instead built a bridge, one that leads straight to Ottawa. Canada's edge isn't size or power. It's something rarer: reliability. In a world defined by political unpredictability, that reliability has become the most valuable currency. Japan knows it. Europe knows it. Even American corporations quietly frustrated by instability know it. Toronto is evolving from a financial hub into a logistics powerhouse. Ontario's assembly lines hum with a new rhythm, a rhythm of long-term confidence. Trump's tariffs were meant to defend American industry. Instead, they've accelerated a transformation that may outlast his presidency. The more the US turns inward, the more the world adjusts around it. Canada's calm consistency has become its silent weapon, turning protectionism into profit and isolation into opportunity. What began as Japan's tactical retreat has become a blueprint for the global economy. Move where stability lives, not where slogans shout. From Europe's automakers to South Korea's tech giants, the lesson is spreading fast. In an era where uncertainty costs more than distance, Canada stands as proof that the safest bet in business is trust itself. Because in the end, factories can move, policies can change, and leaders can rage. But the flow of progress always finds the path of least resistance. And right now, that path leads north.